I continue to toil away in this heat, I must say it, because it's very uncomfortable. So, global change is here, but unfortunately there's such nice garden, but it completely prevents the breeze coming into my apartment. But anyways, enough complaining, right? I have a good life compared to all those people working outside and not having a fan. I'm sitting here with a fan at least. Systematic reasons for silo thinking in a UN agency. Then the senior management, I read this in the first edition of the book as well, but it was a different chapter, so I'm just going to read it again in this context of resistance to change and knowledge. The senior management of one of the largest and most well-regarded UN agencies had been increasingly frustrated for years by the lack of cooperation and synergies between the different program areas of the organization. They disseminated message after message throughout the entire agency, prescribing cross-program linkages and escalating the tone from gentle nudge to virtual command, but more or less nothing changed. They simply could not understand why. They had worked diligently to implement a system linking the overall goals of the organization all the way down to staff level outcomes, which were used as performance indicators for staff appraisals. However, irrespective of its potential merits, this system did not include any performance indicators requiring cross-program cooperation. On the contrary, it provided a wide range of performance indicators for staff to work against to contribute to meeting the objectives of each program area in isolation, and scoring well on each performance indicator was perceived as essential to further one's career. The entrenched silo thinking of the organization had, in other words, inadvertently created a system that not only let me read it again. The entrenched silo thinking of the organization had, in other words, inadvertently created a system not only making it locally rational not to cooperate across program areas, but explicitly rewarding such rationality of advancing one's career by not cooperating across programs. So depends on how you build the system and then how you are trying to get people to behave differently at the cost of their rewards, right? Misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda have obviously fundamental impacts on knowledge resistance and resistance to change. We'll see a prop in a minute. Politicians who actively promote such manipulating messages lend legitimacy to flawed beliefs and encourage their supporters to reject accurate information from credible sources, leading to a breakdown in trust in vital societal institutions and eroding the foundations of democracy. This is again playing out very nicely just according to these lines in the US, with one presidential candidate actively bending information, misrepresenting it, and leading his followers to basically distrust institutions, and the institutions are being put to some really horrible tests to see if they can withstand this assault from one person and his supporters. And even the highest legal body, the Supreme Court, is not completely immune from these cognitive biases, cognitive dissonance, personal interpretation of the Constitution, and so on and so forth. So in some sense maybe it's good because democracy is being shaken to its foundations to see if it will survive, and then the question is what happens if it doesn't survive. So one has to go through these tests just to see what it is made of, I suppose. So to read a few words from Sewak et al. 2022, I don't know how it's pronounced, sorry. A particularly acute example of the danger posed by knowledge resistance can be seen by then US President Trump's attempt to overturn his electoral loss to Joe Biden. There was a riot at the Capitol, and I think it was January 6th, and it is still going on, the repercussions. Whilst it is impossible to know what the former president truly believes, his rhetoric following the election sent an unambiguously clear, though factually incorrect, message that Joe Biden only won the election through voter fraud. The system has worked for centuries and it's a very robust system except for small problems, no real major issues, but he managed to convince a group of people armed and ready to go invade the Capitol, which is, the symbol of democracy, and he had them attack it, set fire, throw smoke bombs, threaten lawmakers, and so on. So whether he really believed that there was a voter fraud, or if he decided I can use this false information to get my way, it isn't even clear what the logical conclusion would have been. Was he going to invade the Capitol and kill the lawmakers and take over the government? What would military do in that case? So it didn't seem like a well-planned project anyways, but that doesn't stop him from doing stuff. After weeks of inciting his supporters through these inaccurate and unsubstantiated claims of voter fraud, on January 6, 2021, the US witnessed an attack on its democratic institutions unprecedented in modern times. So the election happened on the second Tuesday of November. The results came out, I think, literally a few days later. There was no controversy, but he kept on telling his followers that the results were not correct and there was voter fraud and Biden won by deceit. Okay, so this is marching for facts again. I can believe we are marching for facts. So young people saying facts should be so obvious, but they are not, and they are being ignored. So we have to march for facts. Sounds really strange, but it happens. So I mentioned technological factors in the title of the podcast, so I'll read a bit. Finally, there are factors related to our ever-developing technology that also drives knowledge resistance and resistance to change. Although there may be many factors, all of which can be categorized in several different ways, the most relevant ones are here presented under the following two subheadings: tailoring technologies and technological lock-ins. So we'll come back to technological lock-ins in the next podcast maybe. Tailoring technologies. Research shows that ever-advancing information and communication technologies not only make the creation and dissemination of false information increasingly successful, but also easier and cheaper. Now the so-called deep fakes, where people take people's somebody's voice and words and create completely false speeches, even with everything looking so real that you will not be able to say it's a fake. So this is a very dangerous tool that combines AI with audio, graphics, videos to produce dangerously misleading false information. What only a few government-sponsored intelligence agencies and science laboratories could do in the past in terms of photo, sound, and later video manipulation, tech-savvy teenagers are now doing on their gaming computers. So you could be sitting in your garage, a teenager, and you could be sending out deadly videos that are fake. The development of synthetic media, also known as deepfake, is currently very familiar with far-reaching consequences for society. Being able to tailor a completely authentic looking video of anyone you like, saying whatever you want them to say, has evidently radical consequences for knowledge resistance, as we'll see. If seeing is believing, as sensory biases have us do, just imagine what impact deepfakes can have. And the rapid responses, bandwagon effects, crowd mentalities can take the false information and lead to vigilante justice, attacking groups, individuals, destroying things, and so on. So we are really on the verge of some apocalyptic world, in the sense of what Orwell was saying about 1984 and Big Brother and so on and so forth. So in 2017, researchers at the University of Washington shared how they used video and audio material of President Barack Obama, to create a deep fake video. And these are stunningly realistic, really realistic looking, and only deep analysis of the details point out that they are actually fakes. Okay, so let's leave this here and come back and look at the factors and then technological lock-ins to complete this story on how technology can affect our resistance to knowledge and change. So everything that is good, a mobile phone which has become so useful can be used to take selfies in a dangerous place and die, or use texting while driving and create accidents, or walk across the street with your looking at your phone and getting into the way of a speeding vehicle, and so on and so forth. And similarly, AI can be used for good, technology can be used for good, but instead it also can be used to do grave damage to institutions that are supposed to protect us. So we'll come back and discuss a bit more on how technological lock-in can also feed into resistance to knowledge and change. Okay.